Google has lost an antitrust lawsuit for being a monopolistic search engine. And I am so glad they lost this case, because if they won that, that would have been really bad. It would have been the government saying, hey, you can be a monopoly, because what they've been doing has been monopolistic. So they lost this case under Act 2 of the Sherman Act, which says every person who attempts or does monopolize any part of trade or commerce shall be deemed guilty of a felony. Now, the biggest reason this case even happened was because Google was paying Apple billions of dollars to be the default search engine on Safari. And according to the Justice Department, this was monopolistic. And honestly, it just was. If you're paying Apple, one of the biggest cell phone makers in the entire world, billions of dollars to be the default search engine on their default browser, yeah, that's a little monopolistic. It's not Apple choosing you. You're paying to be there. And even if they didn't pay Apple billions of dollars, if they were the only search engine in town, they would have still gotten sued. Because yeah, if you're the only search engine, you're a monopoly. And as for the penalties, we don't know yet. We don't know what the DOJ is going to tell Google to do, or what they're going to have Google do. We just don't know yet. They haven't finalized all of it. But they did lose the case. So hopefully the penalties are actually substantial and Google is forced to do something different and change things up. Because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Google has been terrible recently. It's like really bad. Especially their whole AI summary feature. That thing is horrible. There's a reason you don't see it anymore. It's because it was telling people to jump off bridges if they were depressed. And that's just one example. There's dozens. And also, please hit that like button down below and subscribe if you're new. Today, okay, thank you. Google has seriously gotten so bad over the years. It's insane. If you used Google before like 2018, 2019, it was like pretty functional. It was getting worse over time, but nothing crazy. But ever since ChatGPT came into the picture, it is useless. It is almost useless. It is almost to a point where going to a library might be a better option in some cases. And a lot of that is just really ChatGPT spam. It really is. There is so much random things online written by ChatGPT for whatever reason. It's really infuriating. And I understand that it's hard for Google to suppress all that, because it is really hard to tell what is ChatGPT and what's a person. Like, you know, all those AI checkers, they don't work. If you are a teacher or a boss that uses these AI checkers, stop doing it. They don't work. All you're doing is making everyone hate you. And if you're a student or employee who got caught by an AI checker, get some of their own work and put it in one of these machines and then show it to them. That'll change their mind really quickly. Because the likelihood is, the better written it is, the more likely it is to be AI, because ChatGPT writes in formal MLA format. But these AI checkers are ridiculous, because think about ChatGPT. What is it trying to do? It is trying to mimic human speech, right? So if you're trying to check if something is AI written, if its whole purpose is to mimic human speech, a checker is not gonna help, because you're comparing what it's attempting to be with the real thing. It's gonna come up as identical regardless. And to be clear, I am aware that ChatGPT has like some phrases it uses over and over again and some words it latches onto and it keeps using. I know that it repeats stuff and it kind of tracks across everything it writes, but these AI checkers don't do that. I've just seen too many cases of people getting false flagged for no reason. Like, it is insane that people just assume this tool works when AI itself doesn't work. Like, remember Google's summary feature? Yeah, it doesn't work. But back to Google's potential penalties. Google will probably get fined like a lot of money. That's not gonna be the main resolution of the lawsuit. It is probably gonna be a big fine, plus something like being forced to break up or something like that. Because I don't know if you guys noticed, but Alphabet is kind of huge. And that's Google. No one calls it Alphabet because it's stupid. Everyone just calls it Google because that's what it is. But they own a lot of weird random things. So I would not be surprised if they're forced to break up to some extent. Just whatever they do, I hope it makes Google and the internet better in general. That's all I want from this. Google could have kept this position if they just didn't make search so awful. I really do think that. I think if they made search and all of their things work perfectly, no one would have cared. It's the fact that it got so bad that people had to step in. But that is generally what happens with monopolies. A company gets too big to fail, they get super big, they control the market, and then they get lazy and complacent. Because why would they do anything new when they don't have to, basically, right? But at the very least, Google will not be able to pay Apple anymore to be the default search engine without any, change in the agreement. But at the very least, Google will not be able to pay Apple to be the default search engine on Safari anymore. And that is a step in the right direction. Because yeah, when you're paying to be the default search engine on millions of devices that people use around the globe, it's gonna look monopolistic. It just is. Especially when that same company owns the only real competitor, which is Google Chrome. Yeah, it doesn't look good. And this whole case brings up an interesting point, which is what's gonna happen to Reddit since they recently, just like Google, paid to monopolize the Reddit search on the internet. Like, the only place you can find a Reddit post on a search engine is Google now. So I wonder, are they gonna get in trouble for that? Because it kind of seems like it with this ruling. Now, it's a bit different from a search engine because Reddit is its own private thing under a search engine. It's just being indexed there, so it's definitely not cut and dry. But it will be interesting because it seems a little monopolistic to me. And if it starts becoming a normal thing for Google to pay for results from websites, yeah, that's gonna probably be challenged in court because that's insane. No search engine should be able to pay to have access to a website, and a website shouldn't be able to charge for access. That is not a free and open internet. And this case is also described as a landmark case because it is. It is kind of a huge deal. Any new precedent set for the internet is kind of a big deal, because we've never really said it before. Since the internet is relatively new, we don't have many laws that address it specifically. So court cases that go against these companies is a very good thing for consumers, because that means we have precedent that they should not be allowed to screw us over, which is a big deal in America. Like, do not forget that AT&T had to be broken up and Microsoft also had to be broken up. These companies are not to be trusted, okay? If they're being sued by the DOJ, it is probably a pretty good indication that they're not great. And I'm sure other tech companies are a little worried right now, because since they didn't favor Google, they probably all think they're screwed, because Apple also has an antitrust case going on, and so does Amazon. Both these companies are being sued for being monopolies, which in my personal opinion, both of them do monopolistic things. Definitely. That's my opinion, though, to be clear. Except in the case with Google, they are monopolistic, according to the law. And realistically, Google's been a monopoly since Yahoo fell. And if you don't remember Yahoo, it was a really old search engine that used to be like the top dog. Or at least one of them. I don't remember exactly. But they also have email, which no one uses anymore. And yeah, overall, ever since Google surpassed Yahoo, they have been a monopoly pretty much. They grew with the internet and everyone knows what Google is. Like when you say you're going to look something up online, you say, I'm going to Google it, right? Like they're a verb. That is how ingrained in the culture they are. They are a verb. They have their own lexicon. And that kind of stuff is really good for a company. That is why everyone mutually agreed it was really dumb when Elon Musk changed the name from Twitter to X. And no one calls it X still, because it's a dumb name. Like seriously, if you call it X, you are outing yourself as an Elon Musk supporter. That's all you're doing. Because no one in their right mind calls it X.com. But the biggest thing I want from this is just the internet to get better again. Like yeah, it'd be great if a new competitor rose up and gave Google a run for their money. That'd be fantastic. I'm all for that. But realistically, the only outcome I care about is if the internet gets better. Search should be functional, and Google should not be allowed to rig the game in their favor. They just shouldn't be. So hopefully this results in some real competition that's not AI based, because we've seen what happens with that. OpenAI search engine's a cool idea, but I worry about some things even if it does work perfectly. Because like, for example, let's say a company pays OpenAI to make their product the result when you ask for a certain thing. That's pretty bad, especially if they remove sources, which as of now, I'm pretty sure they show. But down the line, them removing sources makes a lot of sense, because if they remove the source, it would just be ChatGPT telling you about this great product you should buy, with no context as to if that's an ad or not. I'm not saying they're gonna do that necessarily, or that they have done it. I'm just really skeptical about a search engine that doesn't let me browse through things and like click and kind of use my own radar to determine if something's real or not, or legitimate or a good product. And if a robot is telling everybody everything, that just seems kind of bad. Like, it seems like a bad idea to just trust one of these implicitly. So yeah, I don't know about the whole AI search thing. I'm pretty skeptical of it. Maybe it'll get good at some point, but as of now, I don't trust it, especially with Google's AI features. But yeah, let's hope this fixes the internet. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, do follow me on Twitter at spatnz1, and click the answer down, check out more of my content, and have a good one.